Welcome to Shomach Shoma on the Daf. We're holding in Zevachim Daf Kuv Beis. The Gemara on top of Udala brings that who made Miriam a Mitzuras? And the Gemara goes through the list. Says the Brisa, is it Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is a Zar. He's not a Kohen. Is it Aaron a Kohen? Aaron is a Korav. He's a relative. And that's the Raya of the Gemara, that Moshe Rabbeinu is not a Kohen. Now, it's a very simple question that many of the Farshim point out, the Maharal among them. Then why does it say that Moshe Rabbeinu is a Zar? It doesn't say that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Korav as well. You should say Moshe and Aaron can make Miriam Tameh because they both are Koravim, because they're both relatives. Why does it say that Moshe Rabbeinu Zar and by Aaron a Kohen it says Korav? So the Maharal says, you're right, you could have said that. I'm saying that Moshe Rabbeinu, in addition to the fact that he's a relative, he's also a Zar, he's also not a Kohen. But there's a Gevaldige answer that the Ostrovtser Rov brings in the Sefer Meir and Chachomim. And it goes like this. The Maharal, in this week's Parasha Vayigash, the Maharal in the Gemara says something which is very famous. And the reason it became so famous is because many of the Achronim quote this Maharal, who be Roisham, the Shmaitzo, the Balak Tzois, and this is a Gedomo to the Sefer Shmaitzo, brings the Maharal. The Maharal there asks, we know that Am Yisrael, when they went to Har Sinai, they had a din of Gerim. And the din is the Ger Sheniz Gayer, Kekotot Shenoyel Dami. When a Ger goes through a Ger, he goes through conversion, so he considered to be like a newborn, and he doesn't have any din of Kroivim, any din of relatives, with anybody that was related to him before he became a Ger. So ask the Maharal, if so, why was Am Yisrael Osur B'Krivim? Why are they Osur to the relatives? The Chazal bring that Am Yisrael were upset at the fact that they're Osur with the relatives. So Am Yisrael were Osur to the relatives. Why? If Gershon is guy so Yimele, they consider to be newborns. If they consider to be newborns, so why are they Osur on the relatives? That's the question of the Maharal. Says the Maharal, by Am Yisrael, even though they had a din of Ger, it was a din of Gerus, still they are not considered to be Gershon is guy. Why is that so? Says the Maharal, the reason is because Akash Baruch Hu kofa aleim har kigis. Akash Baruch Hu forced Am Yisrael to receive the Torah by putting the mountain over their head. So Yimele, that's why they're not considered to be Gershis Gai Kekodesh Dami. And the Chayim go on to explain what the Maharal means. So the Pirion says, and it's also brought down in the Pachaditzch, which has a very similar idea. What's the idea that Akash Baruch Hu is forcing Am Yisrael to get the Torah? It's similar to what it says by the Rambam, that a person who doesn't want to give a get, you force him to give a get, because that shows his true ratzon, what he really wants to do. So Akash Baruch Hu is forcing Am Yisrael to get the Torah is to show the true ratzon. They really do want to receive the Torah. Why? Because they're Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they're Am Yisrael. So Akash Baruch Hu can force them to bring out the real ratzon. So expense a period. If so, you have to say that Am Yisrael are not Kekodesh Dami. Because if the whole kfiyah, the whole forcing is to show what came from the Avos, that means they're connected to the previous generation. They're not something new. Very similar to Klichem says, just says from a different angle. He says, you can't force someone to do gerus. How can you force someone to do gerus? The fact that you force them, that means that it's not coming from now. That means it's already something that's in them from before. If not, you can't force them. So the fact that Am Yisrael have kfiyas hakegigis, that tells me that they're not kekotot shnei ladami. They're not considered to be as they're newborns, and therefore they are osur b'kriveim even after Ma'amar Sinai. That's the pshat of the Maharal in the Gemara in this week's Parsha. So zok the Ostrovtser davar nifla moed. He says that's all true for the ones that kfiyas hakegigis, that the mountain was put over the head. That's all Klal Yisrael were under the mountain. But there was one person who was not under the mountain. Who was that? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was on top of the mountain. Moshe Rabbeinu went to get Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu was not under the mountain Kfiyas HaKegis. So Moshe Rabbeinu was not forced to receive the Torah. He did it willingly. So Moshe Rabbeinu is the only Jew that you have a din by him of Gersh and his guy Kekotot Shnei Dami. He's considered to be a newborn, because he was not forced to get the Torah. He received the Beratzah. So Mimele, that's what the Gemara tells us over here. That Moshe Rabbeinu is not considered to be a Korev to Miriam. he's a Zar, he's not a Kohen, but he's not a Korav, because by him he's considered to be Geshes Gai Kikot Shnei Ladami. He's a newborn. He's not considered to be the brother of Miriam anymore. That's the Givaldige Ostrovtser in this Gemara. And just small two oras on the idea of the Ostrovtser. We'll end with. Number one is, and this is already a aura the other Svarim bring, is that the logic of what the Kli Chemdo and what the Apirian are telling us still applies to Moshe Rabbeinu. Meaning, why is Am Yisrael can be forced? Because they come from the Office of Chidushim. Moshe Rabbeinu also comes from the Office of Chidushim. So even though he was not forced, but the logic still applies to him. So that's Hara number one. Hara number two is just a few lines down this Amud. What does the Gemara tells us? The Elisheva, the wife of Aaron HaKohen, one of the things that she had that nobody else had was her Yevama, meaning her brother-in-law, is the Melech, referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. But according to the Ostrovtser, the Moshe Rabbeinu is not considered to be the brother of Aaron because he's Kikot Shnei Ladami. So mainly he's not the Yevama of Elisheva. So that will be a aura according to Ostrovtser. How does that work? Anyone who wants to join and sponsor the Shom HaShavah Shurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.